Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, here we go. I've hit the button. This means there's no turning back. We must dive in and learn we shall, and have fun. We will too. My guest today, I'm very excited to introduce you to him. He is an entrepreneur, a marketer, someone I'm hoping to learn a lot from today, a problem solver, and really an expert, a master when it comes to the world of Facebook, Instagram, and the, as it's been said, the not so sexy side of social. But I would say it's even more sexy because it's repeatable and measurable, and you can drive things like crazy. So I can't wait to understand this so much more. He is the founder of Quarter Muffin. Jeff Katz, welcome to the show, sir.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Casey.
So good that you're here. I can't wait to learn from you. You speak into the platforms that you advertise on. It's like you're the whisperer of social advertising. So tell me, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to pass you this invisible, but yet so heavy, Thor's hammer. There you go. Take Thor's hammer for me and smash some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah. So my myth is that Facebook ads alone can drive new customers. And you see this all the time with brands that are, new to Facebook, Instagram, Shopify, and brands that are mid-market size that, might have big businesses or are trying to cast awareness and go more into a full funnel. What ends up happening is they say, okay, we have a great website. The product's being worked on. We don't quite have our reviews up, and our email marketing is being worked on. Let's just kick the Facebook ads off and let's just get some business going. And what people don't realize is that it doesn't work that way. Facebook ads work really well to amplify a message, but to kind of solidify it or kick it off, it's not as impactful as people imagine. And I think in part the reason why people think that is because there are some one-off success stories of, Steve Jobs, who's studying in a dormitory, that kind of scraps together $500 and does a Kickstarter, uses Facebook ads, and la-di-da, he becomes a millionaire. But that is not a tried and true path that other people should be trying to emulate. The way that I recommend running a successful Facebook or Instagram advertising campaign is, what you want to do is start with your product, obviously. Make sure that it's perfect in every respect that is possible, followed by an amazing website. And when you set up a website for any type of social campaign, you want to make sure it's obviously optimized for mobile and desktop, as well as complete with reviews, trust badges, as seen, in the New York Times, as well as any type of credibility you can add. Maybe there's influencer campaigns that ladder up to it, or you've had maybe celebrities that have endorsed your product. Whatever it is to build confidence, that's kind of the platform that you need to then launch any type of paid advertising campaign.
Okay, love that. It's not enough just to give Facebook your credit card and wish it well. Sounds like it'll take your money, but that's not enough.
Right. And there's just so much that goes into an advertising campaign. So if you assume that your brand is super buttoned up and your website is perfect, then at that point, it makes sense, obviously, to get going with a paid campaign. And what that looks like is figuring out, how to best optimize your audiences and utilize them matched with creative. So on my team, what we do is we look at your creative and your audiences, and we create a hierarchy of warm to cold, in that your warmest audiences will be the people that have been on your website in the last 24 hours or 7 days, followed by maybe your Facebook and Instagram engagers. And then there's other audiences that are really warm. People talk about your current or previous customers, people that are messaging you on Facebook just for questions or inquiries. And then your email subscribers. Those are typically where you want to start. And brands that come in with those big audiences like that, they crush it out the gate. Assuming, of course, your website is optimized for traffic. So that's kind of where we look at it. And then we obviously try to match it with the creative to make sure that we can figure out what resonates best with the audience. A lot of people don't realize this, but the copy and the exact details don't make the world of a difference. It really comes down to how strong your data is. So the brands that come in with strong data sets, a lot of website traffic already, it works really well for Facebook ads.
Mm. And it sounds like you need the trappings. It's almost like a Thanksgiving dinner. You've got the campaign, but you've got the prep and the planning, and then you need the badges around it. You need the stars, everything else you can do to make it a full dinner, right? Not just,
Yeah.
it's not a TV dinner.
We actually say full funnel. So,
Full funnel, yeah.
we look at other places to advertise, right? Obviously search with Google. If you're doing Amazon, that helps, and obviously email marketing. And those are places that you can, ladder up in tandem oftentimes. But the best practice is really to have those solidified so that when you're running out, when you're pushing out Facebook ads, any people that aren't captured initially can then be retargeted through maybe email marketing or on Google. And that's really the way that brands scale up their advertising. They're not just running Facebook and doubling and tripling their spend. They're kind of bumping up their Facebook ads a little bit over here, scaling up their Pinterest ads over there. And then as
Mm.
they're going, they're optimizing the full funnel.
Where do you start with this, right? If there are multiple steps, what's step one? Where do you go to begin this thing?
Sure. So step one is really just making sure that your organic content is performing. In other words, if you were to put out 100 Instagram posts and 100 Facebook posts, would you land a single customer that way? Or, you could obviously scale up to 1,000 or however many it is. And if you can do it through organic, that means that you're then able to do it through paid. And my point of view is that if you have an organic strategy, that can kind of help better inform what you want to do on paid ads because you can't put out every piece of content. Only certain pieces of content will make the cut, and that you're limited by budget, time, and obviously creators. So whenever I'm looking at this, I want to make sure that the content is effective. We typically look to see if content is delivering sales between 5 and 10,000 impressions, which usually takes about a week or so. Sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the budget and the geography. And we look at creative that has engagement on it. Oftentimes, when people are commenting or engaging with the post, that tells us as advertisers that maybe there's something here. Maybe the next batch of creative, we should be emulating what's in those images or videos.
Mm, I get it. Cool. Cool. So I mean, talk to me about the interplay between organic and paid. Is it like the chicken and the egg? Should one come first? Can you
So
could test with the other? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And with some brands, I'm thinking about traditional businesses, like if you're a doctor or a locksmith, you
Yeah.
almost don't really need the organic. I actually run advertising for my father, who's a surgeon, and we don't really do any organic content. We do blog posts and we do some email marketing. But on his website, what we do is we predominantly put out, what we see as those trust badges,
Mhm.
certifications, publications, and then we rely on paid ads mostly through search to deliver the traffic. And then in other cases, if you're looking at maybe an apparel brand or brands that are featured on Kickstarter, the organic content is really critical to rally those seed audiences. And the reason why you need those seed audiences is because whenever you're creating any type of advertising campaign, especially on Facebook, a path that really yields strong results is your lookalikes. So your lookalike audiences will take your seed audiences and crank out new audiences that have similar characteristics with those individuals. And increasingly in 2022, we're seeing a shift away even from lookalikes, which historically have performed well, to broader audiences. So for brands that are getting off the ground, what once worked with a small audience of maybe 1,000 or 2,000 individuals in an audience, it's not necessarily the case anymore, depending on what you're trying to sell. Facebook is actually performing best right now with much broader audiences that are in the 2 to 10 or 20 million people range.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Man, killer, killer. How does it tie into in person? Are we staying virtual these days? Do you see campaigns going in person, tactile with? I mean, there's the silly direct or events, or how? Talk to me about the interplay of the social and the advertising with that in person experience.
Sure. Yeah, I think that there are some situations where they overlap. I used to do actually a lot of Facebook ads for real estate agents. And not surprisingly, it's very difficult to sell a house on Facebook because, you have to look at the house, you have to engage with the agent and so on. So in those situations, we would leverage Facebook ads to get people to happy hours just to meet the people. And then, the hard sell, your bottom or middle of the funnel is done more in person. And we were just leveraging the Facebook ads for your awareness campaign. There are other cases where I think it makes a lot of sense for in person. There's a farmer's market down the street from me that collects emails from their customers. And obviously, you
Mhm.
can use those emails as seed audiences for whatever campaign elsewhere. So there certainly is a lot of overlap, and I think it's critical that you connect the dots like you're talking about.
Does it get fuzzy on the tracking side? How much can you truly know from some of these campaigns? I for sure have bought directly from Instagram too many times, so much that I had to, I just, what, it was like two times in one day. And I was looking at a third thing, going like, I want that too.
Right.
Like clearly they had my number figured out. And so I was like, nope, got to close the app. Can't, I'm getting hooked here. So I can track that. That seems pretty direct. But I mean, talk to me about how much attribution you can really get to.
So the default on Facebook, historically, I believe was 28 days, and now the attribution window is 7 days from view and 1 day from click. And uh,
Damn.
yeah, so it's tightened up a little bit, and obviously, that to your point, it makes you wonder what percent of people are kind of falling without that outside of that range. And what we've noticed is that for brands that are doing maybe lead generation, you could track it because if it's a small enough business, maybe you're a real estate agent in this case. When you pick up the phone, you say, "Hey, how did you hear about us?" In other cases, you're going to run into issues with last touch attribution, in that someone could maybe Google you, and then 30 days later they'll say, "Oh, on Facebook, there they are." You come across an ad, and then it's like, boom, you make that phone call. So it gets a little tricky there. And then in other cases, you can track everything if it's completely online through Shopify and Facebook, because you have to imagine that that's the only avenue that they would have heard about you for. Again, brands maybe on Kickstarter, or brands that are just selling basic merchandise. So the
Right.
tracking is certainly there for specific brands, and then other brands, maybe more local brands, it's a little bit more tricky to look at. What people are doing nowadays is they're looking at what's called the blended ROAS, so the blended return on ad spend, and that
What can you
largely,
say that again? Blended.
yeah, the blended return on ad spend, and it's just a different way of looking at your attribution and how successful your campaigns are. It's basically the number of dollars you put in overall, to Facebook, Google, Instagram, whatever ad campaigns you're running, and then you look at what you get out of it. And if you literally turn off one of those campaigns, you can see kind of what the impact is. But it's very difficult to match things up one to one. I all the time will have clients that call me and say, "Hey, I'm looking at Shopify. The numbers in here don't seem to mirror exactly what it has on Facebook." And it just becomes very challenging in all respects, because Shopify has their own way of looking at it and Facebook has their own way, and they're not really interested in talking to each other.
I wish they would. I wish they would have a little convo, right? Go out for coffee together, maybe. You know? Man, where does this thing go? Can you predict for me like the future? If you were to look forward, um, you're in it. You're seeing changes. You've already said that we're kind of moving away from seed audiences to the broader audiences. Tell me more about the future. What kind of changes are you seeing? What are you excited about from the future?
Yeah, so there's one thing that Facebook marketers are looking at the moment, which is kind of a shift away from pixel data, which is kind of what we're talking about right now. Being able to go from pixel data to server side data through what's called the conversions API. And the idea there is that instead of these devices tracking your every move, Facebook and Instagram are saying, "Hey, what if we, as an example, set up a shop where every time you want to purchase the product, just do it natively on Facebook. Don't bother, going to the website and whatnot." And by virtue of that, they're able to then capture additional data points on you. And those
Okay.
audiences that they capture are much more not powerful, but they're much more accurate in terms of the data points they have on their customers. They being, the vendor that would be selling, the shirts or t-shirts and so on. And that's the big shift that people are talking about. Will the Pixel still be around next year?
Right.
Will other platforms start mirroring that style? And I would say the answer is yes. That's a really big thing that's happening at the moment. A minute ago, we talked a little bit about attribution windows. Those are tightening up a little bit because clearly it's a little bit confusing. So those are kind of the big things that I'm kind of eyeballing at the moment. And then obviously the impact that TikTok is having on other platforms, which is you're seeing a big shift to real type videos, because that's where now people's eyeballs are going to. That's where the time is being spent. And that's where a large number of purchases are coming in. If you look at the popularity of ad units within Facebook and Instagram, and it's hard to measure now because a lot of the insights are taken away. But if you
Right.
look at, right hand rail historically versus newsfeed versus stories, stories are getting a lot of momentum. And we're seeing a bigger shift toward purchases geared in that direction compared to, traditional ads that would be seen in the feed. So that's another big thing that's happening this year.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I was wondering about TikTok, and yeah, you're right, that shift to the videos. It's so easy just to. But you're saying that not only is, I mean, as a consumer, I've definitely, I guess, enjoyed them, or when I understood the mechanism. But it sounds like add dollars into those as well.
Exactly.
Interesting. I don't think I've seen real ads. I've been paying for YouTube Red, so I'm like, no ads. I'll pay it all day, every day, just not to. But then half of me is kind of curious. I might have to, switch a profile and just go look at the real ads, because I think the idea, are they quick, or they're not? I mean, they're not that like ridiculous 2 minute long. Are the real ads a little bit peppier?
Yeah, so it depends on the platform itself. You touched on YouTube, obviously, and I think I don't know the exact time frame, but most brands are doing under 15 seconds with these ads, and
Okay.
you know, I've seen it kind of go either direction. I think, just as a side note, a lot of marketers I think nowadays will say, "Oh, the ad's got to be like really tight and short and so on." But I've also seen ads for brands that are maybe selling courses online or describing what a procedure looks like in a healthcare office that are a little bit longer and they are impactful if you look at the view through rate versus the conversions and so on. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so
Where do you like to learn from? Do you have any favorite books you're reading right now? Any favorite sources you like to go to? Podcasts, anything like that?
Yeah, so there's a couple places in particular. My team actually, as a whole, we take online Facebook courses. So Depesh Mandalia is really, really good. He has courses and he has a podcast. The other person that comes to mind is Kat Howell. She also has a great course and a podcast. In terms of books, there's something called the Bamf Bible. It's spelled BAMF,
Okay.
and they're a marketing agency, I think, out of California that does a really, really good job in terms of outlining different strategies and growthy hacks for building seed audiences, not just on Facebook, obviously, but they're really big into LinkedIn and Instagram as well. And I've learned so much from reading it. There's actually a couple versions of the Bible, and I think they come out with one maybe every year.
That sounds normal, as there always is. So funny. Okay, good resource there. Well, next, I'm just really curious. Who are you? How do you know all these things? Can you take me back in time to like the little you days, right? Little Jeff growing up. Did you always know you're going to be an entrepreneur, a marketer to the stars, a thought leader, all these things?
Yeah, so my background, oddly enough, is, or I guess my undergrad degree is in industrial design. I'm really into products, and after school, I started freelancing and contracting for a number of Fortune 500 companies. I helped out actually doing one-off jobs, designing CRMs for a couple brands, as well as implementing social listening tools. So I've just done a number of things in the social media space. In maybe 2013, 2014, I worked on an offering for small brands looking to automate different processes through LinkedIn and Instagram. So any type of engagement, likes, comments, direct messages, and so on. And then in recent years, I called those clients one day and I said, "Hey, um, a lot of these tools aren't as impactful or effective as they once were. Would you be interested in kind of migrating over to paid?"
Nice.
And that's how I got my first batch of paid clients. I've been doing paid advertising for a lot longer. And I used to do it at Verizon full time in a company called Sprinkler. But
Okay.
that's kind of how my company got off the ground. And on the side, one of my passions or hobbies, I guess you could say, is I love credit card points and award travel. So most of my day and when I'm not doing social is spent kind of piecing together itineraries, finding new ways of earning credit card points. and just networking with that community. Honestly, they're very vibrant on Facebook, and I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, man. Um, so much to do that. We're getting into travel in just a second, but um, tell me about quarter muffin. First of all, where the hell did the name come from? And then second of all, what do you do? Like who's your ideal customer?
Yeah, so long story short, I was working at Verizon at the time, and what happened was I was sitting in a sales meeting, and in New York, they brought in, I guess for most meetings, a huge plate of pastries whenever vendors would come to pitch to us.
I love that.
So I was sitting there as the new guy and realized that, I was hungry. Let's dive in. And as I'm looking at the plate of pastries, I realized that I was the only one who was eating. I wasn't sure why. And my supervisor at the time was like, "Oh, I'll grab a knife from the micro kitchen." And she comes back and starts cutting all of the muffins into like 10 pieces. And everyone jumps in. And then I realized at that point, like, not one of you said anything to me. And I felt humiliated. And I told the story to someone that like I was the only one who ate the muffin. And they're like, "Well, you should just call it quarter muffin." And I was like, "That's a stupid name." And I was like, "Wait, the domain's available and no one else is going to add this and no one will forget the name." And I just went with it.
Love it. So, I mean, were there not enough muffins? I mean, could people not just, or how they just didn't want to eat a full one? They didn't want to commit to a full
I
muffin.
I think there's a little bit of shame involved with eating entire pastries in front of your peers. And I didn't realize that at the moment.
I hope with your company you've created the core value of like, look, you get a whole muffin, or maybe you cut them all because the name is quarter muffin now. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's in there. Dive in. That's our mantra.
Dive in. I love that, right? Dive in, get your pastry. Hey, snooze, you lose, man. Yeah, you're all you got left is this one over here. I already
That's
got
right.
that one. Thanks. Do you have a favorite pastry? If there was a giant spread in front of us,
I do. It's a babka. I'm really into babkas.
what the hell is that? I
A
gotta Google
babka,
it.
it's like it's a sweet dough, like twisted with layers of chocolate, and then you put it in a bun cake or a
Oh,
bun.
wow.
I don't know what you call it. It's baked in a cube.
Look at
It's
that.
delicious.
Do you add cinnamon to that or just chocolate?
Well, there's two different types. There's the cinnamon and there's the chocolate.
Amen. This is fantastic. I have not had one, but now I'm intrigued. I'm looking at it. Yeah, it has these just swirls inside of it. Cool. I would say for me, I think I've been to a place where it's kind of always hard to decide. You get the Danish and it's either the cheese one, the raspberry, or maybe the apple in the middle, like sort of the jelly or whatever it is. But I've seen one where it's like you get all three, right? So it's like partitioned off. And that's I think that would be my favorite because then you don't have to choose. You just, I'll
Right.
get take that one, get a little bit of each, inside there.
Yeah, I'm a big Danish guy myself. I dig that.
Yeah, totally. And then because otherwise, you grab that one, you're like, well, I hope I can grab the other one too. But no, one's fine, but I'll just get this one because it triples up.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a hypothetical question for you.
Sure.
Because see, in New Hampshire, I may or may not have a time machine.
Mhm.
And let's say you come visit, we get some beers, lobster, or whatever, some babkas, let's go, some danishes, and then we use this time machine. But it's a particular kind of time machine. And you go back and you meet yourself a few days after graduating the undergrad, right? You just got the industrial design and like younger you is like fresh out of school. What do you tell yourself? What kind of things would you give yourself advice, recommendations? What would you say?
It's a good question. I think that, it's so hard to pin it on one thing because nowadays, what we know about Facebook and Instagram advertising specifically didn't exist in, 2005. And I think that overall, I look at, different trajectories you can take out of school. And I think that if I were kind of giving myself advice, it would have been to start sooner. I think that oftentimes as an entrepreneur, your bottleneck is going to be time and, you know, screwing up. And I think if I have one thing that I wish I could kind of do over or tell myself, X years ago, I wish that I started this whole journey when I was an undergrad. There was a number of opportunities in this space that were bubbling up, and I think every year that goes by, that's one more year where I'm like, I wish I actually did that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Like go for it, right?
Yeah.
Don't wait. That's good. That's good. That's good advice. So now let's talk about that travel. Do you have a favorite airline? Do you have a favorite hotel? Favorite frequent program, frequent flyer kind of program?
Yeah. So
What
I'm
do
a
you
little
love? So
bit.
what are your hates?
Yeah, I think that it kind of comes down to your goals. I mean, anyone in the award travel community will tell you the same thing. I think that the way I see it is, if I'm planning a trip with the family or if I'm going, a place by myself, at the end of the day, it's kind of like how do you minimize your out of pocket expenses and maximize, I think, the fun part of it, which is, in my opinion, it's flying first class or business class. And when I look at different airlines, domestic carriers typically, um, they're all going to be relatively the same when it comes to flying economy. So I'm looking more at award redemptions and availability. Oftentimes, when you start getting 2 or 3 tickets at a time or flying first class or business, what ends up happening is they throttle the award availability in different directions. So, like as an example, American Airlines has amazing availability, but they do this really immature thing where they make you transfer. So it's like, oh, you want to fly New York to LA? Not a problem. 25,000 miles each way. But you're going to have to stop over in Dallas. It's like, oh, you want to go direct? Now it's 50,000. So those are the details that
Uh,
really irk me. And then you have an airline like Delta. And it's like economy is super cheap, but you want to fly business class. They like have insane numbers of miles that they require. It's like, economy is 20,000 each leg. And then, oh, you want business? That's 200,000.
oh my
Um,
gosh.
so I think that in terms of the product themselves, I'm not biased toward one or the other. I do think that JetBlue's Mint class, which is their business class, is superior to all the other carriers in the U.S. So that's kind of what the way I think of it. But I typically go toward what the most difficult part is, which is the redemption itself. I kind of work backwards, and if we're flying a family of four, from A to B, I just want to know what's available, and then I kind of figure out how to get the best deal on it.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough because there was that cost. And I was having a conversation with my dad about this where if you're going to be frequently traveling, having some loyalty will pay off for you. But if you're not doing a frequent travel, then it's better just get a good deal, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I also find that when you have a little bit of that loyalty card status, then it helps smooth out the bumps. Things happen or you need to get rebooked or rescheduled. There's maybe a zoo of people all trying to get rescheduled, but you might be able to get on the phone a little bit faster than someone else, and or they'll just notice you more and hopefully help you out. And on a really rough day, maybe even get bumped into a new class, and you're like, "Whoa, how did I? What did I do to deserve this?" And
Yeah.
it's kind of a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, I've noticed that also. I'm not, I don't have any status with any airlines anymore, but when I did, I noticed that when I would go into a lounge and ask for help in person there, I would get a little bit more, uh, not special treatment, but they're definitely quicker to, address any sort of concerns or challenges. And, I think that for people that have status, I think that's an amazing direction to go. You can also get a status match with other airlines and then kind of work your magic in that direction too.
Yeah. Um, huh. What would you say are like your biggest tips on travel in these programs?
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that people always ask me about is like, oh, which airline should I be loyal to, or which credit card? And I think that there's a few big things to think about, which is the first is transferable currencies. So American Express has their membership rewards, Chase has ultimate rewards, Citi has thank you points, and those currencies will transfer at a 1-to-1 ratio to a lot of domestic carriers. So Amex goes to Delta. There's another credit card that's new called Built. They'll transfer 1-to-1 to United and to American Airlines. I think Citi goes to JetBlue, but I have to double check that. And when you have those currencies, what that kind of unlocks is your ability to redeem for other airlines. So you're not just stuck with Delta miles, indefinitely, right? The other thing that
Right.
I always tell people is that if you're able to transfer your miles to a carrier, maybe like British Airways, you can then use those points to redeem on American Airlines. And
Mm,
what ends up happening is oftentimes it's like 50% of the price. I'm not exaggerating that. So there are times where if you just transferred those points to British or maybe to Aeroplan, which is Air Canada, and then redeem for like United business class, if you do it in that direction as opposed to just redeeming with United miles, it'll be cheaper sometimes to fly business class than economy.
Really
Yes.
interesting. It reminds me. I I heard about some crazy mileage runs because I told you earlier before we got started that I had to get to a certain amount to get to the next level or I'm going to lose it.
Right.
And I googled mileage runs, and apparently on November 8th, I don't know how people find these. On November 8th, you can fly from Boston to Seattle to Lahu, Hawaii,
Hmm.
and back for $500.
Wow.
And you're in Hawaii for 2 hours. But you'll get like 10,000 qualifying miles out of it. Whereas normally you would get like a couple thousand.
Yeah, I mean, it sometimes is worth it. I don't fly as often because of the pandemic at the moment, but
Yeah.
I think for people that are, really fixated on getting status or just earning miles that way, and you have the time and you have no issue flying, I think it makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I would have probably done that, years ago. But I think it comes down to kind of what you value. And on my side, I look at status and I kind of wish I had it. But I also look at the amount of work that it takes, like you're talking about the status run or the mileage runs. I'm just like, I don't know if that's worth my time at the moment. It's a lot of flying, a lot of headaches.
It is like because it ended up being you start at 6 a.m. and you're not done until the next day at 3 p.m.
Right.
Day and a half, pretty much all flying. That's a lot of flying. And that price is not in a comfortable seat. That is in, just regular seating. So that would be a lot of, I mean, if they put you in a lie flat bed and they're serving you caviar, I'm like, let's go. But this is not a dream life here. This is a mileage run for $500. So I'm sure there's people out there doing it right now, just trying to get the miles in.
Another thing I think about for small businesses that are looking to earn a lot of miles, what a lot of people don't realize is that there's a number of credit cards that will get you, 2, 3, 4x, points on social media marketing. If you're running paid ads on Google, on YouTube, LinkedIn, you just take these credit cards in the platforms, and if you're doing 5 or 10K in ad spend, it's like boom, now you make 30,000 points a month. And what people don't realize is that you can also get 2 or 3 of the same credit card sometimes. So if you're, you have 2 businesses, or if your wife is also looking to, get in on this, there's ways of really amplifying how far your marketing dollars go and getting points that way too. And I think that's really worth looking into.
Yeah, love that, man. So good. So good. Where can people reach out to you? How do they connect with you? What websites, what social platforms?
Yeah, so I'm Jeff at quartermuffin.com, obviously www.quartermuffin.com. And, in terms of my social, I'm typically on LinkedIn. That's where I engage with most of my leads and clients. And yeah, that's where I am.
Love it. Love it, man. But we'll put all that information in the show notes so people can just click right on through. Thank you so much for coming on here. This was fun. I learned a bunch. We also got a chance to chat a little travel, resources, the future, and the good old fashioned bob cut, which I will have to check out very soon.
Awesome, Case. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Honor is mine. And for those listening, if you've learned something, and I freaking know you have because I'm filling up pages of notes and everything over here, then share this with someone else. Be a thought leader to one person, 9 people, 9,000 people, whatever. That's how you get some good information in there, especially if they're looking for those campaigns, or reach out to Quarter Muffin. They're going to dive in. They've got plenty of danishes for all of us, unlike his former company, and work with them on some advertising. And don't forget, there's the organic, there's the paid. We got to do this the right way. Amazing. Jeff, thanks again, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, everybody. This has been another exciting episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.